Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm excited to share with you about some of the customs about Pesach, Passover. I want to make sure that we know that this is not the be all and end all of everything. There were so many communities across the diaspora, and there are so many differences within them and between them, and some of it can just be really beautiful. So I want to start by saying, hoping that you notice that we have a new name. So instead of Jewish Unity Through Diversity, we have now become Jewish Tapestry. And the only reason for that is that it's a more engaging name, we believe. And so we're rebranding with very similar logo. Everything is very much the same. We appreciate those who are donating to us. And it will still be the same link to donate to us. We're transferring everything now to the new logo and the new name, but everything is very much the same. So please do notice, do continue to support us. We appreciate it. And like I said, the goal today is really to share the customs. Uh, we really have some interesting stories that we can share, and I'll start with sharing one about myself. When I was a child, maybe 8 years old, we invited our neighbor over, and I grew up in a very Ashkenazi family. Very Hungarian, actually, very specifically. And one night we invited our neighbors over for a Seder, and we did it together. The first Seder, right? It was in America, so we had two Seders at the time. The first Seder we did together with our neighbors, who happened to be from Seattle, which now looking back, I'm assuming they were from a Turkish family, just based on different things that came across. We're no longer in touch with them. But one of the things they did is when they came over, they did a lot of the Haggadah in English, which we had really never done. And in addition, they sang the different stages of the Seder. So Kadesh, Urchatz, Karpas, Yachatz, they would have a tune to it and they would sing it. And before each new section, they would do it. And you know what? That was just a nice way to structure the Seder, and we adopted it. And since then, long time ago, I was 8 years old, in my family growing up, and now in my family with my children and their children, we continue the tradition. And I just think it's wonderful to have these different crosses. And I want to bring in something that I heard from Rabbanit Shira Mervis, that she quoted Rav Masas that says there are four types of customs. And there's the first type is one that we should adopt as it brings people together, just like I just described. Second, that we should cancel because it might be something that will lead to sin. Keep that in mind because we're going to come back to that one later. The third, one that we should just ignore because there's just nothing to it. And four, one we should actively fight against as it can cause confusion and friction within a community. We're going to get back to different types of these, so keep that in mind. I wanted to build it. For those who don't know, Rav Masas was the chief rabbi of Haifa beginning in the late 60s. And he is originally from Morocco. He was a very well-known rabbi from Morocco, the whole Masas or Mashash family, depending on how you pronounce it. There's a family of significant rabbis from there, and I think that it's something that we should all be aware of. So I'm going to start my PowerPoint and share it with you. Okay, so name of it. Please note in the bottom right corner, Jewish Tapestry. So we encourage you, please continue to follow us on it. So the first thing I wanted to start with is we talked about that there were different customs across the world and across different communities. Keep in mind that these go back to when the Haggadah was first put into play and when the Seder was built. So, in the Torah, it just says there's a specialty to the first night. But throughout, the rabbis continued to develop, and the Seder night really evolved. And particularly after the Second Temple, because there was no longer sacrifice. And if you notice, it's spoken about a lot in the Mishnah and a lot in the Talmud, and they kind of canonized it, I would say, by the Talmudic times, although there are still differences, which obviously we're going to be speaking about today. But one of the things that's beautiful is for hundreds of years, uh, many of the texts are the same. And so thank you, Professor Shalva Weil, for posting this a few days ago. This is from the Cairo Geniza. For those who don't know, the Cairo Geniza is from about the year 800 to about the year 1500, although there's a little bit on both ends. And it's basically the way that they would throw out their holy papers. The problem is, not the problem, the good thing for us is they didn't only throw out holy papers, they threw out most things there. So anything that might have Hebrew letters on it, Hebrew writing. Some people just threw out even lists of shopping lists. So we really get a good feel of what the life was like at that time through these things. There aren't other communities that have this. Today, most people will bury those types of things that have God's name in it, but we have this treasure trove of paperwork that's here. So here is a piece of a Haggadah from somewhere between 950 and 1250. And if you notice, for those who can read it, and I'll read it out to you, ובכל דור ודור חייב אדם לראות את עצמו כאילו הוא יצא ממצרים. So notice where I'm reading it here, it's on the left-hand side. In every generation, we must see ourselves as if we left Egypt. So keep that in mind, because this is going to be the main part of our discussion today. The Seder is a way of education. The Seder is a way of reenacting as a way to internalize the message. We go from slavery to freedom, a season of hope and renewal. Starting with customs right away, the Jews of Kurdistan, and again, not all Jews of Kurdistan, please keep in mind that when I say it's a Syrian custom, that doesn't mean everybody in Syria has that custom. That means that it is a custom that came from Syria. So this one came from the Kurd Jews. When they arrive at this section of the Haggadah, when they say, in every generation, each person needs to see him or herself as if they left Egypt, they hold up a mirror to themselves so that they can see themselves as if they were leaving it. Let's talk about also, you see, I have something here in parentheses. Lirot, leharot. So Rambam, Maimonides, says that not only do we need to see ourselves as if we left Egypt, we have to show ourselves as if we left Egypt. And that's part of what we're going to be showing today, how people do it in different communities, different diasporas. Just a note that I have a theater background, so actually education through theater and art. And so I'm enthralled by this whole concept of reenacting and internalizing the message through action. This is a relatively modern concept in most educational circles, and yet it's part of our history. So let's continue. So why the Seder? We already talked about the fact that it evolved through Mishnaic times and then through Talmudic times. There is a framework that we talked about, Kadesh, Uchatz, Kalpas, Yachatz. Some of the things that were incorporated throughout the years after it was somewhat canonized. Again, there are differences between each, and we're going to talk about those. But one of the things is much of the Haggadah is read in the vernacular in many of the different places around. There are Judeo-Arabic, Judeo-Persian, English today, right, or the last few hundred years. Much Judeo-Spanish is incorporated into it in certain communities. So because this is such an active process, the idea is everybody really has to connect to it. And so you need to be able to say it in your own language. You need to be able to really understand the words. And there are also local memories that are incorporated in, and sometimes they would put in some personal stories from their families as well, depending on the place. And the foods obviously are very much regional, so that you use what you have around you in order to create. One of the best examples of that is the charoset. The charoset looks extremely different, and we're going to see some soon. Looks extremely different between different communities, and a lot of it is based on what they had. Apples were a staple in Europe, in Eastern Europe. It wasn't necessarily a staple everywhere else. So you don't have much apples in, let's say, North African or Middle Eastern. Oh, there are some, again, nothing is a blanket statement, but you don't see much of it in those. So let's go to the Seder setting. So I'm saying setting the table and not setting the Seder plate because we're going to see there are nuances here. Seder plate is also called the ke'ara among most communities. You might think the Seder plate is a plate, but actually there are fascinating differences in how communities set their table. So let's do a few of them side by side here. The Syrian and Moroccan Jews use a traditional round plate arranged according to the Ari, Rabbi Isaac Luria, the great Kabbalist of Sfat, or Savad. The mystical arrangement represents the 10 Sefirot, and those who know Kabbalah know the concept of the 10 Sefirot. I have to say, caveat, I am not a Kabbalist in any sense of the word. For those who know, both Yemenite Dardaim, which is a sect of the Yemenite Jews, and Ashkenazi Soloveitchiks, and Spanish Portuguese have basically said, we're not incorporating most of the Kabbalah. So that was really not where the focus of my education goes. But I think it's important because much of the Sephardi world does follow this. So let's go into the setting of the plate itself. So if we say that this arrangement represents the 10 Sefirot, sorry. So if you're starting with those 10 Sefirot, you have the drora, or the shank bone, or a different type of bone, depending on your community's customs. You have that is representing chesed over here. Straight across from it is the egg that represents gvura, or strength. Then the maror is right here in the middle, and the way they're set up has this Kabbalistic leanings to it. And this represents tiferet. Now, each of these words are much deeper. And so I'm specifically not translating most of them because there is a lot behind in Kabbalah, understanding the Hebrew itself, or even just saying the words in Hebrew. Oops. Wrong way. Sorry about that. And the maror kind of connects chesed and gvura. And that's a little below it, but it connects them in. So this is because Kabbalistically, chesed and gvura are anthropomorphically depicted as the right and left hand, and tiferet is considered the torso. So as I encourage you, if this is something that really connects to you, I encourage you to go and research it some more. But we're going to continue. The Spanish-Portuguese tradition has actually 3 separate plates. One plate holds 3 matzot. A second plate has the karpas, the green vegetable, or the green, let's just say the green, because again, each one. They actually have vinegar instead of what most people have learned in school, meaning the salt water. So they have vinegar. There are other communities that have lemon juice, just putting it out there. And they have the maror, chazeret, and charoset together with the vinegar. And then a third plate contains the egg and the piece of meat, let's put it for now, since each one is different. So if we look over here, I had an example of a Libyan, and others do it as well, Libyan Seder plate, which, again, there are differences. nuances across, but the idea is they put everything into a basket, including the matzah, all goes together into a basket. Also notice that most communities that we're going to be talking about today use romaine lettuce or some type of a lettuce for their karpas, for their green. And that's why, for their maror. I apologize, for their maror, for their bitter herb. Sometimes they'll add an endive to it or something, but really it's a lettuce-based concept. Next. So let's look a little more closely at the Syrian Halabi Seder plate. As I mentioned, it follows the Ariz tradition. The maror and chazeret are both romaine lettuce with a small piece of escarole, often replacing the romaine for maror. The charoset is made from crushed dates, almonds, and wine. Notice different, and we're going to talk about a few more. This reflects what was available in the Middle East and what their ancestors brought from that region. The karpas is celery. That's that green. The beitza is a roasted boiled egg, and the drora is roasted meat. Interestingly, Syrians do observe the prohibition against eating broiled meat at the Seder, even though they incorporate a broiled piece of meat on the Seder plate, but they don't eat it. In the Judeo-Spanish tradition, by the way, again, not all of them, but the charoset is sometimes made from apples, together with nuts, figs, dates, and black raisins with seeds, which are ground and mixed together with wine. The zeroa there may be a chicken wing, which is why I've been calling it a piece of meat. And for them, much like the Yemenites, there is no prohibition of eating broiled meat. Another little tidbit is many of us learned about Elijah's cup. Well, Elijah's cup is very much, at least from what I have found, very much an Ashkenazi creation. Most of the communities, again, that we're talking about today traditionally didn't have it. Over time, they were incorporated because remember, there was interaction between each of them. There was migration between the different communities, and it's a nice thing. And so why not? Again, these are customs that why not adopt them if it'll bring us more closer together? But Elijah's cup isn't necessarily a traditional part of these different ones. So I'm going to get now into something that's closer to me. Like I said, I grew up Ashkenazi, but my husband is Yemenite, and we have incorporated many of the different traditions together. So let's go right now to explaining what the Seder plate looks like. And I apologize for all this going back and forth, but I think it's worth it. So give me 1 minute to find him. Somehow I lost it. I apologize. Okay, now I need to share. So this is a quick little Instagram post that we had. And much of what I'm going to show you today are things that we have done, but obviously some of them will also be things that we've taken from other people as well. So let's take a quick look at this. See? Okay, so I thought you'd appreciate that little sample quickly. Let's go back to our PowerPoint here and we'll understand what we're talking about here. So first, the idea is really that that if you look at the Mishnah, there are a few different ways. Oh, that's not what I meant to do. We'll get up there. There are a few different ways to read a certain verse from the Mishnah. And it says, Heviu lefanav metaber bechazeret, so they would bring out something, and that's when you would dip the chazeret, and then that's when you would do everything. So in the Yemenite reading and in other readings as well, it says that you bring out a table. So there isn't a Seder plate itself. There is the table. So if you look here at a community from Yemen in the 90s, I believe, you'll see that they're sitting all around a lower table and everything is kind of around it. So it grew and adapted, and it could be that in the big city in Sana'a, where our family is from, that's really where uh, it came to be a little more organized. But many of the different communities in Yemen did look like this. Today, many of them will do it like this, like we just saw, putting it as a frame around the table, having everything in the middle. Notice that these are not quite ready yet, so we don't have the eggs out and we don't have the duke. Duke is the Yemenite charoset. It's definitely different. It has many more dried fruit in it. Sorry, each one is different. It's very unique, sorry. And like most of them, you mix it with some type of a sweet wine. And now if you notice on the right-hand side, we're covering it with a tablecloth. And one of the things that we talked about is this is a time for education. This is a time to encourage questioning. And so how fun is it to cover everything with it? You have a whole table with some bumps all over it, set with a wine cup on top because you have to have the kiddush first. But then you say, oh, it's karpas time. Wait, where's the karpas? And so you peek underneath and you look for it, and then you take it out and you put it back. And as you're getting through each one, eventually you take it off when you get to the time when you're actually eating the matzah and you have to dip it and everything and make the sandwiches. But for the first beginning, for all through Magid, it's covered. Kind of a concept that gets people intrigued, get people interested. So let's continue. So here is, I'm not just doing this for fun. So just to let you know, there is a new book out called Together the Seder. It's out in Amazon, and this is an illustration of one of the pages from the book. It's a little bit adapted for now, but the idea is that each kid in this kindergarten class comes and has to bring in something from home that shows how they celebrate the Seder. And I'm really hoping that many of our children who may not see themselves in many of the Seder books will see themselves in this Pesach book. That's really my goal. And so here, this is during Yachatz, when the middle matzah is broken. Syrian Jews take the larger piece, the afikoman, and wrap it in a cloth like a satchel, and then pass it around the table, and each person places it over their shoulder. Now, it wouldn't necessarily be peeking out. I just wanted you to be able to see that it's peeking out. And then a dialogue follows in Arabic saying, Min wen inti? Where are you from? And then they answer, Min Maser, from Egypt. Where are you going? And the response, to Jerusalem. Now, this isn't just symbolic, it's embodied memory. You're acting out the journey your ancestors took. We talked about this. So this is internalizing the message through enactment. Children especially remember this. This is the physical weight of the satchel on their shoulders, the sound of the Arabic word, the back and forth dialogue that turns the tables into a theatrical space. In Judeo-Spanish, the head of the house throws the napkin containing lafikomen over his shoulder and walks out of the room, returning with a belt, which is tightened, and a cane in his hand, and this sack containing lafikomen over his shoulder. And he makes a declaration, Kacha asu Yisrael k'sheyatzu miMitzrayim. This is what the Israelites did when they left Egypt. And now everyone again asks, where do you come from? Min wen inti, but not, this is Judeo-Spanish, so we don't. And I come from Egypt. Where are you going? I'm going to Jerusalem. And then everybody says together, L'shana ha'ba'ah b'Yerushalayim habnuya, next year in the rebuilt Jerusalem. Each member then takes the afikomen over his shoulder in the reenactment. And the afikomen itself was considered a segula, something to bring good luck to the people of the house, and it was often kept with a piece of matzah yain, matzah made from flour and wine or eggs. And then this would be kept as a protector of the house against evil from year to year. So let's take a quick look at a reenactment of this. Now, this is based on a video that came out in our, oh, I'm sharing the whole screen. Sorry about that. This is based on a video that came out on our channel. So again, we encourage you to go through our YouTube channel and see what's there. I'm just going to give you snippets of it. These are 5-minute videos that kind of give you an insight into different cultures, communities, and histories. So let's take a look here.
It also calls itself Halabi, after the Arabic name for the city. And so, it is interesting to consider the Pesach traditions of the ancient community. During Yachat in the Seder, the Halabi family would do a bit of a performance. After breaking the middle of the 3 central matzot, the father of the house would take the bigger of the 2 pieces and wrap a napkin or a piece of cloth around it.
I'm going to stop it for a second just to let you know we took a little literary license. Again, it shouldn't be peeking out. It should actually be like a hobo sack that's wrapped around the matzah, but this way at least you can see it.
Carrying the wrapped matzah in his right hand over his left shoulder, he would then recite משארותם צרורות בסמלותם על שכמם ובני ישראל עשו כדבר משה. The rest of those seated at the meal would then ask him, Min wen jai? From where are you coming? He would reply, from Egypt, and the conversation would continue in Arabic. Uluwen rayah? To where are you going? To Jerusalem.
لوين رايح؟
وإيش في زودتك? And what is your food for the road? Matzah and maror. He then transfers the matzah from his left shoulder to his right shoulder while saying L'shana haba'a b'Yerushalayim, to which the others respond Ba'agala ubizman karib, speedily and soon. And then he passes the wrapped matzah to the next person at the table, and the process is repeated one by one. Speaking of one, who knows one? Some of us may.
So as I know we're going a little out of order here, but as we're in the Syrian tradition already, I thought it would help to continue here. We talked a lot about the concept of different languages. So here's an example of a different language being brought in and even a tweaking of the text, and we'll get back to that after.
You know, the English version of the popular Pesach song, but it wasn't in every country of Jewish residence that English was the preferred language of translation. In Syria, for example, the song has an Arabic version. Although, contrary to the English translation, the Halabi song has a few nuances. Entitled Min Ya'lam u Min Yadri, the concepts for which the numbers stand for in the song vary from the Hebrew version. Take number 2, for example. Instead of it standing for the 2 tablets, in Min Ya'lam, it stands for Moshe and Aharon. And number 7 is for the 7 days of the Chuppah, a custom of North African and Middle Eastern Jews. And number 13 stands for the years of a bar mitzvah. Interesting, no? And yet, it makes sense with what we know. But since the origins of the Hebrew version, Echad Miodea, are in themselves unclear, who's to say which came first? Now, to follow through with the Aram Tzoba tradition, let's take a look at the.
So one of the things, if you notice also, that she mentioned that 2 was Moshe and Aaron. Now, in most Haggadot, in every Haggadah, in the basic text, we don't see Moshe and Aaron. They're not part of the story, which is really interesting. And what happened was across the Muslim countries that had a Muslim majority, they began to incorporate Moshe in different ways. And we're going to see a few other ways as well. According to Professor Yossi Shetreat, this was because they had to kind of counteract the concept of Muhammad as the prophet. So we also needed to have the prophet so that we can show that we are a true religion, that we are a larger community. And so that's something that we will see in a few others. I don't know about you, but in our family, we also do Echad Mi Yodea in English. We do the same as the traditional Hebrew version, but we do it in English. And there are many different ways to do it with hand motions as well. So I encourage you again to play with things. We're going to go now to Moroccan customs. And the Moroccan Bibilou ceremony is also a reenactment. The oldest person at the Seder, often the grandfather or great-grandmother, takes the Seder plate and carefully lifts it above each person's head, one by one, while reciting, Bibilu yatzanu mimitzrayim. In a hurry, we left Egypt. You have to be careful, right? Because you're having a full plate on top of people's heads, but that's what we do. Often they will touch the person's head as well. Imagine being a child and having your grandfather hold his plate full of ritual objects above your head while speaking these words. This physical act reminds us that it reminds everyone that the Exodus wasn't leisurely. It was urgent. It was chaotic often. The embodiment makes it real, and that's what we've been showing. It's an internalization of the story. You feel the haste, you feel the weight, you feel the presence of all those who came before you. So there was a group, and this is not ours, but there was a group that came and created just a version for people to see what the ceremony is. And I would love to share that with you. So we're going to take a look here so that you can just hear the words also. Okay, just to give you a little bit of a taste, let's go back to the PowerPoint. Okay, and here's a more traditional picture of one. And here is the picture from the book Together Beseder. And notice he came and demonstrated it in the classroom for all the others there. Now, this is something that I haven't seen people do afterwards. I don't know if any of you know of somebody who was from Jerba and continues these traditions. I would love to learn about it. I would love to share it. I was told that in Jerba they would eat on the floor to show that this haste that was needed. For those who don't know, Jerba was an island that was almost exclusively Kohanim, the priests from the original temple in Jerusalem. And therefore, they have a lot of interesting, unique customs that can be traced back to the temple and what goes on there, and what went on there, sorry. And so they also have walking around and waving the plate, but something they add to it, and this again helps with the haste and helps with reenacting. They're going house to house with the Afikoman calling out, Mashiach is coming, the Messiah is coming, let's all get together, we need to get ready to go to Jerusalem. And that's what they actually take the Afikoman out of there. And somebody the other day asked, what kind of presents are traditional for the Afikoman in these communities? And the truth is, in most communities, you're not supposed to steal the Afikoman. It is not expected, especially we saw with the Moroccans, they put it over their shoulder, others also as well. It's not something that we encourage. In fact, my husband tells the story when he had their big family Seder at his grandfather's house. He was educated in Ashkenazi schools. And at his grandfather's house, all the first cousins were there and all the siblings. like the parents, and the grandfather took the matzah, cut it in half, put it at the side, covered in a napkin, and comes back for afikoman time, and it's not there. And he gets really, really upset. And he looks around looking for where it is. And my husband gets up and says, I have it. What are you going to give me to give it back to you? Basically, he probably whacked him, if this was a while ago, and said, give it to me now. And he said, but my teacher said that I'm supposed to get a present for taking it. And then he looked at his son, right, my husband's father, and says, this is what kind of school you send them to, that they teach them to steal? So no, I wouldn't say that most of these communities get presents for it, although again, a lot of the traditions and a lot of the customs have been cross-pollinated. So again, we're a little out of order, but I wanted to mention at least that beautiful custom from Jerba, that on the seventh day, they actually have their prayers by the beach. Again, a reenactment, so that they sing the Shirat Hayam. They sang what the Israelites sang after they crossed the Red Sea and after they were saved. Some did dress as Moshe and Aaron. Again, incorporating them back into the story. We're still talking about a Muslim country. So let's keep going. Now, this one custom has come a lot to be known much more. I've heard about it in a few places. And I took it here from Dr. Esther Shkalim. So she says that at Dayenu, we take green onions or chives, and I've heard scallions as well, and hit each other with it to remind of the whips of the slave masters. And again, it's a fun little reminder. It's a reenactment. It's a way to internalize the message. A cute little thing she adds, or maybe not so cute, is that in a 14th century Iberian Haggadah, at the place where you point to the maror and say, maror zed, this is the maror that reminds us that in that Haggadah, it suggests that you point to your wife. But Esther also found one where it says the wife points to the husband and vice versa, so maybe it's not so bad. Just another note is Ashkenazim, like in Vilna, did take the custom to point to their wives. So we have them across the board. Now we talked about the vernacular, we talked about putting it into different languages, but we also talked about adding different stories. So I do encourage you to, for the 4 questions, there is a version of the 4 questions on the Jewish Language Project. I can send you the links afterwards. But the Yemenite tradition has, before you read the 4 questions, has a story, which the story of the Exodus of Egypt isn't part of the Haggadah. So this one is called Machabal, and there are a few different versions even within the Yemenite tradition. So you may, if you know it, you may hear it a little bit differently. It's always in Judeo-Arabic, and it's continued today. We're going to see in a minute a young lady reading it for us. But the story is about the story of the plagues, and you tell them, and then you get to the plague of the firstborn, and there's a woman who feels almost a relief because she says, I don't have any children, I don't have any spouse, I don't have any family really, I have nobody that they can kill, so I'm saved. And what happens at that time? A wind blows through her house and knocks off her oldest idol from the shelf, and it breaks. So there's no house where there isn't some type of a death, some type of a mourning. And it's something, again, that the children are encouraged to say. And just like the 4 questions, where often it is the youngest that says it, here you encourage them to also have the youngest say it. So I'm going to show you an example of somebody a few years ago who had his children saying it. Hold on.
רבקה.
מחבר עד הלילה من جميع الليالي خولدنا وعباينا من بتاع بودية ما كانوا يفعلوه كانوا يخلدوا وتبن في اللبن واللبن في التبن لمان لفغوا غشا جمو على ذي غاسو سسمه وفمو سمنا قتلوا وعوض المصريين أدام ودفدا والجمال والجمال والروش والفنا والجغاب والبغاد والجغاد والتلام وملت الأبقى هي تعجوز بجوز عليها ألف نانا تجوز كان معها معبود من إجنا دخل كاب أكلها وصرخت فتل الليلة
وكان
صرخت قديم بميس لخيم شنامور كين بايت الشخن شمت وجرقوا المصريون في بهار الأوكلوزوم وخرجوا بني إسرائيل من وسطه وخلصهم على بيت جديدة وضممدودة وقبتيمة ويتبرهم على يد مشى ربينو לעולם الشلום وهذا الجاب.
Notice that she also said Moshe Rabbeinu. So again, this is another way that, like Professor Shitrit said, that it's incorporated back into the Haggadah in different ways. Now I'm going to move into a little bit of the food. There's a new YouTube video with Jennifer Abadi and Pashali Lass on our YouTube channel. For those who want the link, I will definitely share it. But I wanted to give you a little peek into it because Jennifer shows us a different type of a haroset. So let's take a little bit of a look here.
A Moroccan-style haroset for the upcoming holiday of Passover. What makes this particular haroset unique from many others that I've made is that the way we serve it is in little balls. They almost look like chocolate truffles, so I call them Moroccan-style truffle harosets. Today I'm going to show you the ingredients. We're going to prepare it, and then when I'm done, I'll show you how to serve it. So first let's go over the ingredients. We have the nuts, which are toasted almonds and walnuts. And then we have the dried fruit. We have cut up medjool dates, which are the larger, thicker dates. I have golden raisins, and I have black raisins. And then to combine, after we do this all in the food processor, I put in a little bit of pomegranate juice. You can also use red grape juice and red wine if you want. Manischewitz, the sweet wine, or regular wine. So what I'm going to do first is bring it over here and put it into my food processor. All the balls, excuse me, here in the cinnamon like this. Keep rolling them. If you need to add more cinnamon, you can. Oops! Keep rolling them like this. If you have to clean your hands, sometimes I rinse them in cold water and I start over because the hands start to get a little sticky. But you see here, you keep rolling in the cinnamon, rolling again, adding to your bowl until all of it's done. You're finished, and you can actually freeze them. They freeze really well in an airtight container. What I like to do is put them, you can put them between pieces of parchment paper if you're afraid they're going to get stuck. But they freeze really well, so you can make it a week or two in advance.
And on that video, there are 2 other recipes as well, so I encourage you to take a look at them. Jennifer has in her cookbook many others as well, so I encourage you to take a look. I'm sure there are others out there as well. So let's get back to our presentation. And we have the haroset. Now, one of the things that we have are the questions. And we talked about that there are tweaks in them. One of the things I love is they look back at the Mishnah Pesachim, and one of the questions here, again, we can analyze them afterwards. There are differences, slight differences. The concept, the structure is the same, but there are differences. So one of the differences here is on all other nights we eat meat roasted, boiled, or cooked, and tonight only roasted, which most people don't eat roasted meat because they say you'll think that you're actually eating the sacrifice, the korban Pesach. pointing out the Yemenite Jews specifically do eat roasted or broiled meat. That is a specialty on that night that you specifically eat when you eat the egg as well. So let's go into another custom that I'm sure most of us have heard, that the eating of legumes or not eating of legumes on Pesach. Now, again, even within communities, there are many differences here, but let's go back to one of the problems that Rav Massas brought up could be with customs. So Rabbi Jacob Emden testified to his father's vehement opposition to the Ashkenazi practice of banning the consumption of kitniot on Passover. Rabbi Joseph Caro considered the ban baseless, and Sephardi practice generally permitted kitniot. So if you look at the Beit Yosef, but the Chacham Tzvi Ashkenazi, who is Rabbi Jacob Emden's father, wished Ashkenazim would follow suit. Every Passover, he would thunder and say, "Would that my power grow, I would abolish this terrible custom, for it is a stringency which ultimately leads to a leniency." Remember, we talked about customs that might cause people to sin. What emerges from it is a destructive and stumbling block before those who wish to avoid the prohibition against the consumption of chametz. Banning the consumption of kitniot, he argued, was counterproductive. If the goal was to keep Jews from violating the strictures of Passover by preventing them from inadvertently consuming chametz, the ban on kitniot produced the opposite outcome, because people would say, "Oh, if I can't eat this, that's ridiculous, so I might as well just eat everything, because really there's nothing else to eat besides peanut butter. I need the peanut butter." And so they just end up eating everything. So like I mentioned before, there are differences even within communities. So like in the Syrian community, they mostly only ate the fresh legumes. Today, I've been told that they do eat rice at this point. Rice is a little problematic because you actually have to check it, because there is something about grains blowing into it. So rice has a little bit of a different thing, and you have to clean it before the whole Pesach started if your custom is to eat it. In Morocco, even each city or each town may have had their own customs. So like in Sifru, they did eat kitniot, and others they may not. And Judeo-Spanish is one of those that I was told they eat kitniot, but not rice. Although again, today, as we learn to check things differently, or as things continue, they may do it. So I want to go into a little bit, and I don't want to spend too much time on it because we're getting to the end here. The last night after Arbit, Syrian men take several stalks of wheat and symbolically beat each other with them, greeting one another with the salutation, Santa Hadra, may you have a green and fruitful year. This ceremony is called Leil Chametz, highlights the fact that now the new wheat may be eaten, and expresses the hope for a year of plentiful produce. I'm not going to go into the Mimuna ceremony right now, although we do have a video on that as well, so I encourage you to watch it if you are interested. It is mostly widespread right now, and more widespread. Many have adopted the custom, so I'm hoping that most people have at least heard of Mimuna and the basics of it. But I wanted to add, Dr. Esther Shkalim, herself a Persian Jew, says Ruz al-Bara, the Day of Parks, was barely written about. There are 5 sentences maybe written about it in 1955 by Hanina Mizrahi, and she decided this is ridiculous. Somebody needs to research it and understand it. And what would happen then? Everyone would go and give food gifts to their neighbors, and it was needed to be reciprocal. And she's saying that was actually the original Mimuna, that the Persians are the one that began with the Mimuna. Some things that she explained is that, for example, Moroccans didn't dress up on Purim, and yet here for their Mimuna they do. It's a day when they interact, and a day for setting up people, the boys, the men and the women, the young men and the young women, for marriage. And in Iran, this night or this full day, the Jews dressed as non-Jews. It's dressing up began here. They also have the same foods, much of the green, the showing of the new year. And to have a good year was one of the main greetings for all Mamunas, but it seems that it's interesting to wish a good new year at the end of Pesach. And she ties it into Nowruz, right? That's a Persian, originally Zoroastrian holiday. And Nowruz was even mentioned in the Talmud and by the Amoraim. If you see the customs in this context, then they make even more sense, the ones that were in Morocco and across the North Africa. So it's something to keep in mind, something to see. She has some amazing things written about it. And I want to remind you that in every generation, we are encouraged to tell the story, to retell the story, and to reenact the story. I hope that you enjoyed it. I encourage you, please, to send in your stories to let us know what customs you feel really help you connect to the story as well. This is interactive, and thank you again for all your support. I encourage you, the book is now live on Amazon. You're encouraged to order it. It is a great book to read to the little ones, to really allow them to see themselves and see that just because one community does one thing doesn't mean that that is the right thing to do. We are a multifaceted people, and I encourage you to share that with others. So thank you. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to our next time together.